6 months after the U.S. captured Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, and took control of the country's oil exports, a major financial dispute is growing over where exactly the money is going. Since installing a new government in January, Venezuela's sale of crude oil has generated over $13 billion for Washington. This is according to estimates by the Financial Times. The money was expected to help the South American country, which is also recovering from the devastating earthquakes that hit last month. They caused an estimated $37 billion of damage. Washington has sent $386 million in disaster aid, but economists say the bulk of the oil revenue hasn't yet reached Caracas. The oil sector accounts for about a quarter of Venezuela's entire economy. But even with an easing of sanctions and a surge in oil exports, first quarter economic growth fell to its lowest in 5 years. So where's the money? The answer depends on who you ask. The Trump administration says it's holding the funds in trust for the Venezuelan people. But the U.S. president recently stated the brief military operation has already paid for itself 28 times over, adding that his country is, quote, making a lot of money.
Venezuela, one-day operation, great, good army. And now we're making a lot of money with Venezuela, and Venezuela is doing great also. It's a happy country now. But it took us exactly 48 minutes to win that war. We have the greatest military in the world, 48 minutes. And we've paid for the cost of the war, where do you hear this? 28 times already. More, but 28 times. So the cost of the war, we've already, because we brought millions of barrels of oil out, and we're getting along great.
Let's speak to Javier Farje, a Latin America analyst. Wonderful to have you on, Javier. Look, the basic question is, do the Venezuelan people trust Donald Trump to get their money back?
Well, the choice is either this kind of what the Financial Times describes as economic colonialism, and it's not a word from some think tank from the left, but the Financial Times, or foot soldiers on the ground. They haven't got a choice. Now, Trump said from the very beginning that he would personally control the revenue. They have an expression called custodial governmental capacity. That is the excuse they are giving for them to control, because all the money, all the exports of oil and the income of that exports have to go through American bank accounts, controlled, as you said, rightly by the government. So in that respect, and no money has returned to Venezuela. The government of Venezuela has issued a website, they call it the kind of transparency website, where they talk about how much money they get and how much money they spend. They only received $300 million, the money that has already been spent anyway. So they are not getting the money they are supposed to get. The government in the U.S. insists that the money belongs to the Venezuelan people, but they are trying to control it, trying to be the custodian of the money. But on the other hand, Trump is talking about the U.S. making a lot of money out of the oil export. Now, many Democrats and Republicans are very unhappy about that. If the Democrats gain control of the houses in the midterm elections in November, there will be a lot of questions to be asked and a lot of in terms of transparency of that money. But Venezuela is not getting the money that they are already exporting to the United States. Many companies in the United States did not want to invest in the Venezuelan infrastructure because of the situation. And so in this time, the government has taken control of that. And here is the situation. Venezuela is not getting any of the money it is produced by the exports of oil.
And how much is Venezuela suffering by not getting that money, Javier?
Well, a lot, because they need to reconstruct after the earthquake. The UN, as you mentioned, talk about millions of billions of dollars in reconstruction. They got a credit from the World Bank of around $35 million from the IMF to reconstruction. Again, that will be dead in terms of the IMF. They need a lot of money. And also, one of the calculations that people are making, economists are making, is that if the reconstruction goes well, the oil industry will emerge as the winner of this situation. So if they get the money to reconstruct the country and also to reconstruct the facilities, the oil facilities that have suffered as a result of the earthquake, the economy should go better. There's another element that we have to take into account, Adnan, is this, that inflation has gone down a lot about it. Why? Because in Venezuela, and I saw it with my own eyes when I was there some years ago, you have the exchange rate control, dollar towards dollar and bolivar, the official one, and you have the parallel market, what you could call the black market. The black market is more expensive than the official exchange rate. But many companies had to buy dollars from the black market, from the parallel market, because the government didn't issue enough dollars in the monetary market to be able to supply this. That means some companies had to rely on very expensive dollars to import goods and pass that cost to the consumer. The gap has gone down dramatically to 20%, and that means that that's going to benefit the Venezuelan economy, because inflation will go down dramatically. Inflation keeps on going up, but not at the speed as it used to go in the past. So this is a mixed bag. On the one hand, Venezuela needs the money that they have earned out of the export of oil. Venezuela also is trying to make deals with companies in order to have their own deals with other companies. Like the company called Venezuelan promised they are going to buy 500,000 barrels of oil. In that case, the Venezuelan government will be able to counterattack the control the United States has over its revenue by having deals with private companies. So it's a mixed bag of situation, but they need the 13 billion that Financial Times has said, rightly so, the government controls.
Look, Donald Trump said that he wanted to build up Venezuela's oil sector. Given how important that sector is to the South American country's economy, has there been increased confidence in that sector, or actually has it been diminished because of American actions?
American companies do not want to invest in Venezuela because the infrastructure has been underfunded and obsolete. The refineries in Venezuela are really in a very bad state. There have been supplies of equipment to start to rebuild the infrastructure of refining oil in Venezuela, which has been a big problem for Venezuela. But they don't have the confidence. After Maduro was kidnapped, basically, and Trump had a meeting with companies that used to work in Venezuela, they said, we are not going to invest there. That's why the government decided to take control over that. So the government has to have confidence, give confidence to oil companies to invest in the oil industry in Venezuela, so the government can actually control its own revenues. But they need the confidence, and so far, at the moment, the confidence is still not quite there. As I said, some equipment has arrived to Venezuela recently to rebuild and to repair, if you like, the refining capacity of Venezuela, but it will take some time for that to happen.
Javier Farje, thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.